Good morning. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be back on the stream. I'm glad people are starting to jump into the stream and follow us for this session when we're going to talk a bit about the art and the visual design process of Snufkin. My name is Are. I'm joined by my colleague Marcus, who's the lead art director for our Snufkin game. So if you don't know us, we're a indie studio in Oslo, and we are currently working on the game Snufkin Melody of Moomin Valley. Yeah, you already got comments on your mug. I have which mug did you have, Marcus?
I have the hat partners.
I had the Ratners. I'm the Tutiki mug, of course. I even have another mug with water, so I'm fully prepped for all the Moomin. Yeah, so this is our third stream. Is it fourth actually? It's actually the fourth stream that I'm doing from our Happy Games account. Slowly getting used to this, and then maybe this is your. Have you done a live stream before, Marcus?
I have never done so this will be fun.
Nice. It's good for me to be more experienced in something at least. Marcus is he's um, it's he calls himself a journalist, but he's more like specialized in everything, is my opinion. But
That's a good phrase. Thank you.
So Marcus has been working on this game from the beginning, and I thought we were going to talk talk a little bit about like how we started working on the game, and I think Marcus will be doing most of the talking, hopefully, this time around, and I will be asking questions and yeah, I have been a part of this as well, so I might have a few comments here and there. Um, but yeah, maybe we should just get started. And also, please post your questions
Yeah, for sure.
in the chats, and we will try to answer as they come in. And yeah, let's just start talking Moomin and Snufkin. Um, so, at some point in time, I was discussing with you, Marcus, about the idea of making, or with the whole team, of course, making a Snufkin game, and we did discuss like what kind of game should that be, and we were going to travel to Helsinki to pitch this for the Moomin characters, who's the company who owns the rights for the Moomin stuff. Do you remember what the pitch was at that point? What I told you to do?
I I can't I can't remember like exactly what the start was, but but it was going to be this. We were looking at doing maybe like a top-down game and sort of doing something very Tove-esque. We're looking at so the Tove had done. Yeah, and it was a bit different, I believe, from what we ended up with. I can show the
Yeah.
first sketches we did, and we had for reference in the office. It was mainly the graphic books. So we did this early on, just put down like 2D walking around. I think that the idea was that we would use combine stuff and use them in clever ways to solve puzzles around the game and sort of build stuff as we went along. But yeah, it started like the first sketches were kind of. I still think they have something. There's something to them, but yeah, they're a bit simpler and more plain and more flat.
And also, I should mention that everything that we're showing now is like work in progress and early
Oh yeah,
sketches and not representative for the final game. We should have like the legal disclaimer coming up.
yeah,
But yeah, it's so we are going to show a few things that are not finished at all, like these, which were made before we started working with the Moomins at all. So this was something we did for pitching the concept for them.
yeah,
But yeah, I think the
definitely.
first direction was definitely um, sort of retro RPG, like old Zelda, I guess, inspired. And we
Yeah.
still have a bit of that, but like the art style has changed quite a lot. Even though I think sort of the overall mood and atmosphere is pretty similar still, in my opinion.
Mm. Yeah, if we were looking at we were looking at these or early on these more this style of images, or at least that was sort of my initial inspiration, or where it got started, and sort of doing this in sort of a like not a cutout style, but more like this handmade type thing. And yeah, like you said, it's a lot of this isn't sort of approved for anything by the Moomin team, so it's a bit yeah. This is not what it will be in any way.
Yeah, and I should mention that we're working very closely with the Moomin characters, the company who owns Moomin, and they are thankfully they are very strict on like what's approved to be like canon, what's actually the official look of everything that we make. And this is a good thing because they make sure that we sort of preserve the legacy of Tove Jansson and that people can't really just do whatever they want with these characters. So a lot of the things that we're showing now is stuff that they have seen and that's been approved for use in settings like this, but it's not like something we're going to use directly in the game when it's finished.
Yeah, for sure that the Moomin team has been awesome, and they're always constructive, and sort of like you said, they really do care about the characters in the world, and that's very useful for us to have them helping us in that sense.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
one of the things that I think was interesting in these first ones are like that's this is very specific, but like you have if you zoom in on the tree branch and you
yeah,
have this very distinct Tove Jansson style lines, like the etching of
mm.
and also like the water that you have here. It's quite similar to what we have right now, isn't it?
Yeah. We sort of went this direction later on. So this is taken from some of her paintings and some of the paintings that are not done by her, but sort of in her style, and in the later books. So this kind of approach we've kept. We really wanted, like, we explored a lot with the hatching as well, because it's such a like, this is very Tove, right? These weird trees with the hatching and stuff, and especially with, if I can just these things she does that are really like intricate, and yeah, you sort of recognize her very like meticulous hatching going around circles and that sort of stuff. And we do have that still, and it's something that's fun to incorporate. It's very
This is
there's a lot of it.
this is also like references from other people's work
Yeah,
and not ours.
yeah, that is
To be
good
clear.
to yeah, that's good to make a point of. So we have references from all over the place, but we sort of like the Tove stuff is always canon, or that's the baseline. That's the faucet.
Yeah,
That's the correct answer in any sense.
yeah, we always try to make it feel as close to Tove Jansson because they're like you could just briefly show a bit of these references, Marcus, to
Yeah,
like I'm not sure if everyone knows like how much variation there actually is in the different art styles that exist within the Moomin universe.
yeah, because that is like Tove Jansson's style is like real. It's so varied. There's so much fun to look at. And it really is different from time to time. Like there's always this sense of Tove, right? you can see, or like even if the characters look different from time to time, they're like instantly recognizable as Tova's characters, and sort of like this Semulum, he looks completely different some other places, but yeah, it's apparent who he is, and especially with Grok, who has a lot of iterations on definitely Snufkin as well. Like these aren't Tova, but
Yeah, that's right. The ones on the top was made by someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Posthumous, yeah. But like the style is really varied. So this watercolor direction is sort of our main inspiration, but he does these remarkable 2D, more graphical style picture books that are like really distinct, right? Yeah, super fun.
We had a question here in the chat. Occult Burger asks, so there is a night-day cycle in the game, and I guess the answer is that there is night and there is day, and it's not a cycle in the sense that you would see in like Breath of the Wild or something like that. But there is definitely both day and night, and it will differentiate throughout the game. But we don't have real time. Like time isn't really a concept in this game, so people play at their own pace, and it doesn't affect the gameplay that time is passing.
Yeah, right. And then sort of the style doesn't really, like, we don't disregard shadows and lighting, but sort of we're going in a very flat direction, and sort of having a sun moving across the sky would sort of look maybe not weird, but it would be definitely a technical challenge, and sort of we're like doing lighting, we're doing it kind of stylized, not really realistically. That's a very good point and a good question. So yeah, we will definitely have night scenes, and I think those are very fun to do, because it sort of is this the whole mood of Snufkin games.
Another
really
comment
well
in the chat we should mention. Somebody says, I don't know if this is correct or not, but somebody said that Cecilia Heikkila, I'm sorry, that's a Finnish name. I'm not good at pronouncing it. Maybe did the Moomin books at the top that wasn't made by Tove, and I do not know. We should have credited her. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. That's
great.
People are
So thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you.
So let's talk a bit more about like the environment and the atmosphere that we want to create. Like I guess the night day stuff enters into that, but it's also we've been focusing a lot on making things feel very Nordic, which is a central part of Tove Jansson's work as well, I think. And she always used like the plants and the flowers and everything in the scenes are mostly based on plants and flowers and trees that's found in Finland where she lived. And that's like from the pillars which Marcus is showing here. These are sort of the main pillars that we're focusing on when designing the game, both for the gameplay but also the art style. And then like the Nordic atmosphere is one of those that we want to convey, because like I think the Moomin and Tove Jansson's work is like quintessentially Nordic. It's very Nordic in its both the literature and the art and everything, in my opinion, at least.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, because nature is certainly like a really huge part of the Moomin universe, right? It's like everywhere. Like there are some indoor stuff, of course, but like it is outside. They do. Like, it's a lot of this stuff. There's it's very, what's the word? There's a lot of it.
Yeah.
There's great variety, and it's always sort of, well, in the winter it's not blooming and stuff, but there's a lot of this really rich nature scenery, and I think most of our like larger paintings at least, and
Mm.
features heavily in the graphic books as well, for sure. And especially since we're doing a Snufkin game, right? So nature is so quintessential to like his world, and we need to take that into account.
Yeah, but of course, like the most important thing, like nature and environment is very important, but of course, the Moomin stories and brand is all based on the characters, and it's been a bit challenging because for a video game we have to have like the characters are animated and rigged in a way that we can use and move around dynamically within the game. Whereas Tove Jansson was not very strict on the characters, like how they looked and how they like their anatomy and how have you been approaching those problems?
So, yeah, like you said, the characters feature heavily. Like our gallery or like selection of characters is huge. There are so many fun ones and so much fun personalities. Like this, like there are so many of them, and they're all so different. So, I think it seems that we're a small team, right? We're not BioWare in a sense, so we have to make something that's doable. I suppose in making a lot of characters. Yeah, and since they are important, like the stories that she has about the characters are really they're a lot. It's a lot. They're very different, and the topics are kind of I don't know. Quite mature and adult and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
we need to have a lot of characters featuring. Uh, um, oh wait, what was your question? I forgot.
Well, I have another question coming in from Irkbal. Did you always know it was going to be in the older movement style and not the newer 3D modeled version? And yes, we did always know that because we started working on this game actually before or very early while the Moomin Valley, like the first season hadn't come out yet, I believe. So that wasn't really a reference point for us at all. And I think we've been very focused on like always referencing back to Tove Jansson's work and not to the 3D work, stuff, not to the 90s animation series and or the earlier animation series. So all our references go directly to Tove Jansson's own drawings and paintings.
So
But
yeah,
yeah, sorry.
sorry. Oh yeah,
No, my questions previously was about the characters being like Tove Jansson didn't animate them, but she drew them, and all the characters can look very different from like you see, for instance, Snufkin in the book up on your left side there with the harmonica, the accordion, sorry, compared to like in more modern Snufkin adaptations or some of the more painted Snufkins. They are very different in their. I mean, Tove it doesn't seem like she had very strict guidelines on herself on like the proportions and scale of things, for instance. But it's always very clear to recognize the characters still. Um, but these changes from like hand-drawn illustrations and paintings, when you in the art team has been working with like nailing down the characters for the game. I know this has been a recurring issue that like what's the true form of these characters.
yeah, indeed. Yes, that is a good point. So Snufkin definitely has a lot of it.
Sorry. Hmm. I think we lost Marcus.
Sorry, did I go out? I think Discord crashed for a moment. Sorry, am
Uh,
I in?
You are in.
Right.
Could you
So,
toggle your camera as well?
sorry.
You have to turn on your camera, and I think we should
Yes,
begin.
thank you. Technical stuff is hard.
Oh,
All right.
just like this, like,
Yeah, it's like characters. So yeah, Snufkin does certainly have a lot of iterations, like these versions are doing like this. Yes, that is Snufkin, and that is his father. It's like suddenly he's this huge guy, tall neck, small hat. It's a lot of variations for sure, and even in this. I mean, look at this guy. That is adorable. The Snufkin version. So definitely the team at Moomin have been very sort of helpful and sort of being particular about sort of which way that is okay. And like Tove, of course, could do many different versions, but since like in our game we have to like choose one. I don't have the reference. I sort of like the best. There's this picture where he's dancing and sort of his limbs is all over the place, and he has this kind of long neck that is it's a bit like the anatomy of Tove. Many of her figures is a bit I don't know, surprising in some sense. Like a lot of them sort of don't really have shoulders and that sort of stuff. So yeah, so that was a process sort of narrowing down the correct movement. I think the first drawing I made for the sketches is sort of off, and our test turnaround was a bit off. But sort of it's especially with Snufkin, it's a process, sort of going through iterations, and we have these great illustrators on our team, Adriana Winter and Olvarsin, and Mats Fransen, sort of doing most of the drawings, since my drawing is sort of mediocre. Yeah,
you always
so
think that it's not true.
I think it's important to use the skill sets on the team. So yeah,
But maybe you could show a bit of our Snufkin, because now we've been focusing mostly on the references from
sure.
all the works. Somebody asks
Yeah,
where we find all the references. I think most of these were sampled from before we started working on the project, and like stuff we found online and in books and etc. So just a big collection of things we've gathered up of the years.
Indeed. Yeah. Of course, the Movement team has a lot of material for us to look at. And maybe if I can just touch like quickly on sort of where we went with the directions, because like Paul comments on sort of we went in the watercolor direction, and this is probably like the main illustration image, one of my favorites to be sure. So we wanted something that is truer to Tove, right? Or like something that feels, it's not like Tove made it, but sort of in that spirit that this is handmade, and that it is sort of like arts and crafts from like when you were younger and that sort of thing. And the movement cups, while like they're amazing, all of them, and sort of they do have some exceptions, but mostly they are this very clean style. But when I end up looking at, say, this one, sort of how much like life, right, there is in this finish, where there's this nice breakup in the colors and sort of this stuff happening. Some saturated pieces, and sort of there's so much life in this world, and sort of we want something that was our own, but still not something that is our own, even though there's been some fabulous sort of directions taken other by other companies, and sort of not. Well, these are like the anime is fantastic, but sort of we wanted to look sort of distinct. just on a side note, we did entertain doing something in the 3D realm and felt as this feature, but we discarded that quickly. Yeah, so we ended up sort of drawing more on this direction. But while these are amazing paintings right now in their own right, they're a bit difficult to make for a 3D or 2D game, or in a game settings. They're kind of busy. There's for an explorer, for a picture to explore, this is fantastic, but it takes a while to read, so we need to simplify it a little bit. Sort of take the essence, right, of these amazing paintings, and sort of we drew a little bit on the Cecilia Hekla work, just because the palette is slightly more muted, right, and it's a bit quicker to read. And sort of that fine tuning, I suppose, sort of drawing it a little bit in this direction to make it more suitable for a world that you're going to pan around and do that sort of stuff. So yeah, so we ended up sort of more in this direction, which, you know, it isn't the Tove painting in any way, but we do try to sort of draw on the watercolor concepts and that sort of stuff. And definitely, like it's obviously not pure 2D, right? We can see parallaxing, and there's slight perspective, but sort of treating it kind of like a 2D game.
Yeah, I think we should deep into that a bit more as well, like going a bit technical in a bit and explain a bit how we do the 2D 3D merge. But before that, like I think from the references that we have, I think the most direct references is like the plants and the trees and the vegetation, and that's all of that. Those are really recognizable and very like distinctly Tove Jansson. Like for instance, the chestnut plants and and also like things like the flowers in the back here, and I really love that we have been able to have those. They're quite like simple in form, but they feel so much like Tove Jansson to me.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
like what. Oh, sorry. Good.
No, go ahead.
I think that's one of the like fun challenges of Tove, like for me personally, because doing visual stuff, you sort of get this. There's this knee-jerk way of doing things, and you sort of get. There's this tendency to go like maybe in a Disney direction or like a Blizzard type direction, and sort of Tove has this really particular like shape language, right? This like the trees and the sort of not naive shapes, but like the leaves are kind of wonky, and like the tree roots, like they don't work like that, and the sort of the shape is kind of, it's a bit irregular, and it's very distinct for Tove, and sort of getting past that sort of this is how I draw, right? So you have to try to think like Tove did, and it's a fun challenge to sort of shake off that the way you usually do it type lines. They're a bit, a lot of it is a little bit like wonky or unusual in the shape, and that's sort of, I think that is part of what makes it a bit like, or rather recognizable, a lot of it.
Maybe you could show a bit of the early explorations and 3D and 2D and the directions, that's like the references from other games, and how we ended up with this style.
I think so. When we had sort of a go from Moon that this could work, we did sort of look a bit, or that we did look at what the game should be, and I'm sure our design team can sort of speak more to this, but we were looking at a short hike. It's Snufkin, it's very exploratory. That would be a good thing, sort of running around the world, and also the Knights and Bikes thing, which also has a 2D, 3D hybrid. Yeah. And then looking at like the hatching and all that stuff, and sort of doing something in 3D like this, right? Maybe we have rotating camera and sort of more perspective, and looking at traversing terrain in a larger extent. That is a different way to approach it. So we were doing these tests. Maybe I have one of the hatching, I think. Let me see. This, no. Hatching. Looking at, so this of course is not how it's going to look in game. We were looking at sort of, okay, how do we make something that is reusable using the hatching techniques? And of course we run into a lot of problems, like what happens in different resolutions. So how does it look when you move the tree far away? And sort of we were looking at just the technical stuff of how to solve that while design was working on gameplay. So you can see some early iterations of rocks that would work in any angle, right? Have some shading that sort of works more in the graphical direction, which has a lot of like potential. I think when we were sort of when we were considering sort of what game or what kind of gameplay Snufkin would be about, I suppose we ended more up in a sort of, he's not a runner in a sense, or he doesn't, it's not an action game, and sort of you don't do knights and bikes sort of stomping and running around hitting stuff. I think one of the early ideas was that we shouldn't have like a violent game, or in any sense doing that sort of traditional hitting stuff. And then we sort of took it a step back and ended more in the sort of where we started. Sort of it's Snufkin, and more of not running through nature, but more wandering through nature. And we ended up sort of not if we're focusing on storytelling, right, and meeting characters and having that sort of Zen trip through nature, or rather, so that we will have parks. Like Snufkin isn't happy in the world. We have to have something to do, so it's not always Zen, but sort of having that experience took us a little bit away from sort of that rotating camera going all around the place direction.
In the video and background area, you're just you're showing a bit of the how we do the shaders, I believe, for the tree branches.
Yeah. Sorry, I just go on.
If someone was wondering why the trees were jumping, that they are not. It's just showing like how the trees are randomized in various positions. So we can have a lot of variation with very simple assets.
Sorry.
But yeah, you mentioned a bit like the discussions we had earlier. We spent a long time on this, like landing the 3D, 2D, because there's a lot of advantages with 2D, and there are advantages with 3D, but both of them are like with the completely orthographic, meaning there's no perspective, like a 2D game, then it's less of like, it feels less like you can it feels less like you're exploring in some way, because it's more static. It's more like panning an image around. So we wanted to have a bit of depth. I don't know if you have any. Maybe you could show a little bit about how we do the camera and how we solve the issues with depth that we currently use in the game.
Yeah, sure. We can do. I do have Unity open. Yeah. So yeah, this will be a bit of like how the sausage is made. So this will get ugly quickly, but you can see at least how a bit of our work environment. So yeah, so we ended up in a 2D 3D hybrid because, like you said, there are some benefits to doing 3D. Some stuff are definitely easier to do in 2D, so we're giving ourselves some challenges. Like doing like drawing this tree foliage thing here. for instance, is definitely sort of, it works well in a 2D setting because the volume isn't that important. And definitely characters having the ability to do them 2D is beneficial. But like I said, we were looking at Knights and bikes, and sort of the rig they're doing on that one is like mind-blowing. What they've shown on their streams, it's fantastic. But of course, doing that for a character assortment like Torvus would be like unsurmountable amounts of work. So we did sort of ended up sort of having that in 2D. But what we do get in 3D is, you can take this rock here, and so you can get a lot of variation, right? It's doing, because you can rotate it and that sort of stuff. I think these are good examples in that sense. Yeah, you can build a lot of you do get a lot of mileage, from one asset or several assets that you can sort of turn around. The same with sort of building the world is quicker, right? And you can have these pieces that you can just shove together and sort of build an environment quickly, like you can in 3D. So painting, redoing this area. I'm going to add my trusty test Snufkin. Drawing this and redrawing it can, would require a lot of iteration, and our designers can just throw things around, make the level quickly. And certainly this piece by itself doesn't look. Oh, sorry. Good. Do I have a piece? No, no piece. 1 moment. There we go. Having a piece that you can rip off and sort of copy around is quick. And like you said with 2D, Chris, one of our designers, had this challenge like very early on, that sort of having some parallax or having something that sort of moves differently, right? Gives us this opportunity to do a bit of like a reveal, some sort of, if you're standing on this side, it looks different than standing over this side. And allows us to do this sort of Vista type look where you can, you could, like the composition changes, right? When you move that. That was, if I can just quickly go back to our previous sketches.
While you're doing that, let me just answer a question. Somebody asked about music, and Ugo asked about how music became a focus element in the game. As the source material is by nature silent, that's true. But Snufkin is a musician. That's one of his core skills and parts of his personality. So I think that was something that we knew very early, that like music should be a part of the game, and because that's important part of who Snufkin is. So just then you can continue.
I'm glad you're taking questions. I have sort of get very focused on what I'm looking at. But yeah, this first sketch here, which looks kind of weird, was sort of an exploration of sort of like, if we're looking down into the ground, right? What happens if we sort of make these sort of fake, like looking into the ground, you'll never see the horizon, sort of skies and horizons and sort of layers into the distance, so you've blown and that sort of thing. It often is like visually interesting. So we wanted to have this sort of thing in, and sort of, can we fake that in 2D? And of course, you kind of can. So like adventure games have done similar stuff before, and that sort of enters. That's where the camera and stuff enters. So we do have 3D in a sense, and parallax of all this, but all of our billboards needs to be straight. We can't have perspective on them. So while we do have perspective and we need to look into the ground, we have to sort of pull a little bit on the camera matrix. I can show really quick how that works.
If that would be great. It is a bit technical, but I think people would find it interesting. I hope so, at least.
I sure could. I could go on forever about this. I think this is fun stuff. I have a camera. So another part of this is sort of, it's hard to get lost in, or it's easy to get lost in the fact that it is sort of building a 3D world, right? But it is like 2D, like we're going for a 2D look. That was, or at least a part of the goal, sort of to embrace 2D and embrace the flatness. Sort of like I said, we're not fooling anyone. You can see that there's 3D here, but it's sort of keeping that sense of, or that aesthetic that it is 2D. So everything has, like, this is where we evaluate stuff. That's why I have this test Snufkin that you can see isn't working properly, but it gives us a scale and allows us to move around and sort of seeing how it should look instead of getting lost in sort of this stuff which isn't looks bad and isn't representative in any sense. Let me find a camera. So if you're familiar with, like, it's a technique used in architectural photography a lot. I can see from the side here. You can see our camera is actually pointing straight forward along the z-axis, right? But our view is downwards, and you can think of this kind of like we're cropping. Like if this was a wide angle, we're cropping this bottom part. So the cue is never to rotate the camera, but of course we need to look at the ground. So it's a massaging approach. I did find these images here for reference. So you can see like this image sort of taken straight on. It keeps like straight lines are straight shapes, as opposed to this type of thing where things disappear where lines disappear into the distance. And sort of what happens if we rotate the camera a lot is that you sort of reveal the whole billboardy thing. So suddenly you can see these posters standing up on the ground, and sort of want to avoid that. And you can see this image, well, probably adjusted post. This is sort of the same thing where you can see you're looking up at this stuff, right? But the shapes of the planes towards us is the same. So for a camera, technically, what happens, like everyone's seen the tilt shift stuff like this. This is a camera, ready. Tilt it straight forward. You have sort of, if you have a building, right? You have a plane. Top of the building, same distance as the bottom of the building, so it's parallel, right? But if it hits the film and sort of the light goes through the lens and does some stuff and sort of comes out the other end. What you can do is sort of move the film upwards, so that the angle sort of changes, but the camera's like the lens and the lens elements are still pointing forwards, so you get you get the same perspective. Like theoretically, there's more stuff going on the world, or through the lens it's all curved, but for a 3D camera, a straight line is a straight line, and suddenly the distance to the camera is different, right? But the plane is still the same. Tilt shift camera does the same thing by moving the lens instead, so you sort of move the lens downwards and the cropping changes. But how the camera views it is the same, you just get a different cropping. And what we get by that is sort of, we get to see the ground. And you can see if I put a box here, it will be perfectly square. And that makes it easy to sort of, what you're drawing in, say, Photoshop or whatever, gets the same visual when you put it in 3D, in the 3D world. Yeah, technical.
Yeah, that's great. I think, yeah, it is a bit technical, but I think I find it very interesting, at least, and hopefully that came across as well. And you have some other cool examples, like do you have the round rock that we push around somewhere or in a video? I think that's.
Oh, yeah.
Is it available? Because I think that's an interesting technique, but maybe it's not available in this area right now.
I'm pretty sure I can find it.
All right. But I think that's a nice, like, because most of the rocks that you see in the game are 3D, but for some, like this spherical rock that we're pushing, the object is actually like a flat object.
Yeah.
But
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, but you've done some interesting tricks with the shaders there to make it appear to be 3D. Are you able to demonstrate that?
I think I need to have the game running.
Okay.
I could probably change the shader, I suppose. I think the testing was just driven by time or something, but I can sort of show and tell, I guess.
Yeah.
So the rock is sort of an interesting challenge, or sort of exemplifies why this hybrid, or when this hybrid gets complicated. Because one thing that's sort of easy to do in 3D is to rotate stuff, but in 2D not so much. And of course, a round rock needs to rotate, and we can build this as a sphere. But like a sphere, if we have locked the perspective like we have here, or sort of shifted it, a circle is usually just a circle. It won't change perspective if I move it like down in this corner. It's still almost the exact same circle, and as opposed to perspective where it would be warped slightly in the edges. But sort of stylistically, I didn't really want it to sort of look like, okay, that's a 3D rock that they're rolling around, because it's supposed to sort of feed into this notion that it is a 2D, or sort of take that aesthetic. And so looking at this, just to show you where I sort of find difficulties. So when we do 3D rocks, it's hard to do the 2D look like, right? It sort of shows how you're doing 3D geometry, and it's hard to break up in the sense that we'd want. But the 2D rock we can sort of fake, and sort of by moving texture underneath. I don't think I have a controller for it. Sorry. By just moving the texture up and down, it's sort of it conveys a rolling motion, but it doesn't actually rotate. Maybe we do have it in the trailer though. It's probably better.
I'm not sure if we're doing that well.
Okay.
No, it's fine. You will be able to see that in our announcement trailer, I believe. But maybe we could also discuss a bit while we're there with the parks, because you could see, I think the parks are the areas that we have in the game that feels, because they have the most 3D environments, I guess, because they do require to be like a physical boundary, like a maze that you're supposed to walk through. Oh, here's the rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you can see. So yeah, that's very briefly, but
yeah. So obviously the rock, you can tell that it isn't round, right? But you can tell what it's supposed to do. And sort of if you were doing a 2D animation in film, sort of traditional, that would be sort of how you would move the textures to give it that sense of offset. And sort of, I think it plays into the 2D feel, which is sort of what we're trying to fake with the 3D rocks as well. We are working a little bit on a tweak to that. But yeah, I'd love to show some parts. I think those are very kind of illustrative on where it gets challenging. If I just quickly then sort of show. It's not a pet peeve of mine, but so if we're doing 2D, right? We're doing this construction like Tove does it, where she, how watercolors work. You sort of leave out an area, and so you can see Tove very meticulously paints in this shape on top, and it's this really simple shape.
Yeah, it has this sort of white outline effect on the drawings.
And so we do try to do that in. That's sort of a style approach we do, and part of this. The approach is sort of having the same structures, or having some structure, I guess. And doing that 3D doing like a painterly look in 3D or 2D has this sort of two ways to do it. You can do sort of like you'd end up doing sort of Dota or Blizzardish stuff, sort of doing a 3D model and painting it, and that is a great look often, but it's not. It's apparent that it is 3D, and sort of the whole thing of this approach is that a text, or if the idea is that this view could have perhaps sort of been painted, you wouldn't have a paint stroke that sort of follows the shape of the rock, right? And so you can see our structures are very often projected from the direction of the camera, so that the grain is sort of consistent with our view, and sort of if I were to look at it on the side, it would be this, which would be sort of the opposite of painting in 3D. And that enters into how we would construct the park. And often that is the sort of the thing we have to work against, right? So that the rock will have. We do use a lot of world-based textures for static stuff, both for variations and sort of we need to project from this angle. So if this structure would follow the rock and we were to rotate, it would start betraying the 2D sense. I think I did bring in my park sample. So
CL Art wanted to know what software we're using to paint the watercolor style textures.
Yeah, so we do have we're using Photoshop mostly because that's most people do know it, since we were several illustrators working on it. And as such, we do have like a selection of brushes that we sort of use to keep it consistent. It's an easy way or a low-hanging fruit to sort of mesh everyone's style a little bit. So yeah, definitely Photoshop, but maybe can I do like a short tandem on characters about it?
Yeah, please.
That topic. Yeah. So a lot of it can be painted quite directly, right? So our trees is painted sort of the way they just straight out of Photoshop. We do, of course, have like a lot of things happening in shader. So this trunk, for instance, is a gradient map, right? So we can have different colors and do things in shader. And the foliage is, of course, you can see this texture happening. Sort of stuff that moves, so we want to give it sort of like if we cut it out and did like a cutout frame by frame animation type feel. Of course, it's not, it isn't, but sort of a lot of this stuff is happening in shader, right? Yeah, when we paint stuff, we paint it kind of like it's going to look in Photoshop. But a lot of the sort of meshing and sort of adding the grains, and that's the watercolor stuff happens in Unity directly. Both because it's quick to work that way, and also because it allows us to sort of tweak like small differences to have it all mesh better. Like I said, with the characters, they do have this kind of particular construction that Tove does, or not particular for Tove, I suppose, but in watercolor. And since, like, if I can show just a sneak peek into our art guide for construction, I think. Yeah, so we do imagine it like this, like it's not exactly how we draw it, but this is sort of the idea I try to keep in mind when we're doing an asset. Right? So in watercolor, you'd leave something out, and then you'd sort of fill in with simple shapes. And Tove does this really, really well. I think for like these Tufslam or Islam, I forget their English names. You can't see where the arm. Oh yeah, thank you, Mo. Thanks. It really is just this shape, right? And she does some facial stuff, and there's a new shape, and that's sort of their body, and you can't see where this arm attaches, right? But it's you can read it. It's still very easy to um, to read, I guess. Same with this accordion, right? It's this simple shapes, just big surface, with a little bit of watercolor on it. But the thing is, when we're animating this stuff, it's beneficial for. We're doing this in Spine, if you guys are familiar with it, which is a great tool for this sort of stuff. But sort of having things attach, right? If they were textured, you could see seams, for instance, and sort of wherever you have a line, you'd sort of identify the pieces really quickly. So we do this thing where we paint shapes completely flat wherever we can on characters in particular, and then add like a processing later, right? Doing this maybe. Yeah, where I don't know if you can see this with compression and sort of adding the sort of like the idea is sort of if this was handmade, there would be some paper differences, and the silhouettes wouldn't be quite like you can see Tove doing this really precise painted, and sort of the white space not quite matching from frame to frame, but still giving it that life, right? And so all the shading that gives it more of a papery texture is sort of added in later. Yeah, so that's a great question. I could go on. Sorry. Sorry, we were doing parks. My bad. Let me find Unity for us.
Yeah, let's have a look at the parks, and no need to rush, but I think we'll wrap it up after that. So is there any more questions? There are a few coming in. I think a few of them are a bit too technical to go into right now, but please have your questions if you have anything that we should enter into before we wrap it up in a few minutes.
Let me see. Is that's that part? All right. Yeah, I really appreciate the questions. That's always fun. Yeah, so I just ripped up some few chunks, so that's why they're a bit bare bones. But I think this works well for the part. I think also it illustrates this. Yeah, so this thing with Snufkin, right? He is all about like nature should be free, and it should be like this wild thing. And when he encounters the parks in our game, it's sort of the opposite. They're constricted and sort of not maintained, but sort of kept in these really blocky shapes and restricted in many ways. Right? It's tidied. It's not how nature would work. And sort of that distinction from sort of more random nature type style and going into the park needed to be different, right? At one point we were even thinking sort of, okay, maybe the park is completely isometric, right? Where it fills it would fill the entire shape of the screen and sort of be that as the park. But of course that would be a bit too restricted in gameplay. So we didn't do that, but we were kind of adamant that lines should be geometric, right? Boxy and sort of very words. Very structured and not allowed to sort of do its thing. And sort of the challenge with that is, of course, if the moment you have a box, it's apparent that it can't be 2D, right? You need some axes inwards as well. And we were trying to do more of an like where all the shapes would be diagonal, so that overlapping would work, right? So if you can really see the sausage being made. Let's see. Doing a shape that is like, oh, sorry. Doing a shape like this, right, would always have a front and a back. You would always, it wouldn't have any depth issues, and we could sort of get away with a lot of things. But our designers were pretty clear that they wanted these verticals and horizontals because it feels more restrictive, and I'm kind of glad they insisted on that because it does work really well. But of course, it does pose this challenge where you get these very close to parallel lines to the camera direction. If our point is to make these sort of Tova style, zoom in here, drawings, you'd have sort of some sense of this white paper silhouette. This is, of course, isn't white, but from that notion. It presents a challenge if I move, let me see. If I have a camera on this side, you can see down here at the right, I can see this side of the bush. But if I move on the other side, I can see the other side. And if I wanted that sort of shape outline, if you will, it would be on the corner of this bush. But of course, if I go on this side, it would be sort of in the middle of the bush, and that sort of gives us all sorts of challenges. So I think this is a good example of a compromise where we sort of did it on top and sort of do a little bit of cheating to break up the shape. Right, it's easy to see the geometry, and that is a big thing for me, is hide sort of the geometry when we're using it and sort of have everything feel like it was like brushed on or painted on wherever we can. So it does get a bit cheaty there. But definitely doing this requires a lot more geometry being in depth or in the Z axis in our case. I think also a fun thing about arcs is just they need to feel constricted or restrictive, or Snufkin doesn't like them, right? So, and we're sort of playing a Snufkin, and so we need the arcs not to be. They need to feel a little bit wrong in a sense, kind of boring maybe. But of course, we want this whole thing to look appealing as well. So it's a really fun balance to work with.
We got a question about the little mice bow in her neck, which is usually drawn pink, but we have like an orangey yellow color on it. And someone, Lillian Iris, asks why, and I assume that has to do with the color palette that we want to have like more distinct, like for a few of the characters we've worked a lot with like having strong colors, like in some of the more graphic works from Tove Jansson. I assume that may be part of the reason.
Yeah. So that's also a very good question. I like for the nuance of her bow, I can't say for sure which one it would be the correct one, and I'm pretty sure Moomin would have the exact answer for us straight away. But in terms of palette, if I can touch on that just really quickly. Definitely, sort of some tweaks need to be done right from the more graphical works or the Moomin cups or mugs. Just because doing things in watercolors, you can get really vibrant colors. Sort of not going all the way. We wanted to do them not muted, but maybe not like garish in all the colors at once, and sort of the palettes of Tove in especially the graphic novels are pretty like. They're so cool, and they're not the kind of palette it's not the palette I would choose, right? So it's a fun thing that way. But in watercolors, there's a sense that sort of it shouldn't be too like doing magentas and like strong, maybe not earth tones is sort of feels a bit off. Maybe if we take it like to full saturation, there can definitely be all of the color wheel in it, but maybe not like the neon type versions. The same with sort of black, right? So she does a lot of inking, right? Sort of never having watercolor go completely black, rather just try to break the colors a little bit, having some hue variation and never going total black. You can see even with the eyes here or the lines in the face, they seem very like the contrast is high, right? But they're the same color as this pants. I think it meshes better that way. I think for Little Mai, which has she has is very saturated red, so it's sort of to have grain blend in. For example, we can't do full saturation, but close. Yeah, but that's a great question too.
Great. I think actually we will have to wrap it up for today. I think we on our list of things to talk about, I think there's definitely more we could talk more about, like the animations and the
For sure.
rig of the characters and all of those things. So maybe we'll have to do another stream about the character animation and things later on. But yeah, I believe we have been able to answer most questions, not all of them. I'm sorry about that. But I hope you all enjoyed the stream, and do follow us on our socials. We are on Twitter and TikTok and Instagram. And we have a really nice Discord server. You can find it on our website, snufkin.game. And also the link is on the screen right now, I can tell, so that you should be able to read. So please do join there. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask there as well, and we will get back to you there. Yeah, I guess that was it for today. Thank you so much. And thank you, Marcus, for joining me. I hope we can do that again sometime. It was really nice.
Sure. Great fun. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Cheers.